Greetings, my name is Kerry and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking a bit about my massive problem, which is my massive TBR, and how I'm going to be trying to tackle it over the next year. If you watch my channel regularly, you'll know that I've started introducing an extra stat into my wrap-ups, which is the state of my TBR, how many books are currently on it. At the end of September, which is the last time I checked the stat, I was on 540 books on my TBR, but that's because I created a separate shelf on Goodreads, which is my book death row shelf. So now any books that are on book death row are on their own shelf. It's an exclusive shelf and there are currently 20 books on that shelf. It was 21 at the end of September, but I started, I took one off yesterday because I decided I didn't want to read it. So a bit more on that later. Basically, I don't have a problem with owning lots of books that I haven't read. In one sense, I am a book hoarder and I love buying books. I particularly have a habit of buying cheap books from charity shops, library sales and that sort of thing. I really love supporting good causes by doing that and also getting some really good bargains. But it does cause me some problems because when I do then buy books, I do feel a little bit guilty about it because of how many books I own that I haven't read yet, and anytime I buy something new it just makes that list longer and it takes me longer to get to books that I want to read. I also feel guilty about borrowing from the library because again it just delays getting to read books that I own, but using the library is a really great way of supporting my favourite authors without having to spend lots of money on books. Because I can't afford to buy all the books I want to buy, I buy them cheaply to try and avoid that, but it's just an ongoing cycle of things. And then I get given books and then I don't read them straight away and then I feel guilty about that too. So I sort of have realised that actually the size of my TBR is a bit of a problem. And while I'd love to say it's fine to own hundreds and hundreds of books that I haven't read, I'd rather it was a slightly smaller number. So I've decided I'm going to start doing something about it. The other reason for doing this is also that I live in this great little flat, but at some point I'm probably gonna want/need to move. When I moved into the flat I had, I think it was about 50 boxes of books in total. At least half of them were books that I hadn't read. I'm sort of beginning to have a process of decluttering because I realised that, well, when I moved into this flat a lot of my stuff had been in storage and I hadn't touched it for a couple of years, and I've been trying to sort through a lot of that clutter and try and get rid of stuff that I don't actually want or need. One aspect that I'm trying to declutter over the next year or so is my bookshelves and try and get rid of books that are dead weight, that are ones that I don't actually want to read. I always buy books with the intention of reading them at some point, but over time I might lose interest in them, or maybe I bought it because it was a buzzword at the time but I didn't really know enough about it, or I've got books that were given to me by friends or family secondhand, or that were given to me by friends or family new that were ones that I maybe wasn't interested in reading. So all sorts of reasons. And just when I want to be at a point when it's time for me to move out of this place that I don't have hundreds of books I haven't read to cart with me to the next place I live. So I just really want to get that TBR down and get that pressure off myself a little bit. So my plan is over the next year and a half, however long it takes, I'm going to be aiming to try the first chapter of most of the novels that I own and then make a decision about whether to keep them or not. So there are going to be some exceptions to that because it is a massive undertaking anyway. So to try and make my life a little bit easier, I've decided I'm not going to worry about non-fiction because I don't read a lot of non-fiction anyway, and that doesn't, well, straight non-fiction only forms a very small part of my TBR. Christian non-fiction does form a fairly sizable part of my TBR, but they're books that I'm more likely to read and enjoy at some point and more likely to want to take my time over. Because of my background, I have a degree in theology, a master's degree in theology. It's something that holds a lot of interest for me, so those books are safe from being cut back at the moment, and I'm going to be trying to read, I've been aiming to read one non-fiction book a month, but I am actually going to try and increase that to read through those books a bit quicker because I keep putting them off to read novels, mainly because I'm doing a lot of readathons and it's harder to fit non-fiction into the prompts. But then there's non-fiction November coming up, so I'm sure that will help me get through some more of the non-fiction, hopefully. The other exceptions are series that I'm partway through, so if I own a lot of books from a series, I'm going to keep the series, especially series that I know that I'm enjoying. It seems pointless to try the first chapter of a series when they're an ongoing story, and I have enjoyed what the books that I've read from the series so far. So they're safe, and if there's authors that I know I really love their works, then I will probably class their books as being safe, particularly some classic authors like Dickens or Trollope, but probably some contemporary ones as well. Or if I own a lot of books by an author and I haven't read any of their books yet, if I read one or two and decide I like them, then I probably won't bother reading the rest of them. And the one final exception is I have maybe a dozen books that are in French from when I studied French, or in years subsequent to that. If I see French books cheap somewhere, I tend to pick them up because I need to practice my French a bit more. And again, I have an ongoing thing where I have a French book that it's taking me a long time to read, and I want to keep doing that. I want to keep reading in French and keep practicing that. So those books are going to be safe as well because they're in French. So my aim is to try 10 books a month at least, maybe more if I find the time to do it. And I'm just going to try sort of the first chapter, the first maybe 20 pages, depending on the length of the book and the length of the chapters. I'm aiming sort of to get to around the 20-30 page mark and make a decision about the book. If I like the book, it will just stay on my TBR, and that will be fine. If I don't like it, I can then unhaul it straight away and get it off my TBR. And if I'm not sure, if I don't want to make a decision about it straight away, and if I can't decide if I want to read it or not, then it will go onto Book Death Row at that point, which is why I've created that as its own shelf now. That will hopefully help me start to clear some books that I have been unwilling to make a decision about, or that have just been sat on my shelf for years and years. Now, this could potentially make my Book Death Row unmanageable because I could, if I'm not careful, just shift books from my TBR to my BDR, and that's not going to be okay either because it just moves the problem along. So I'm going to attempt to cap Book Death Row at 50 books. If it goes beyond that, then I will have to start unhauling the books that have been on there the longest that I haven't got around to reading yet. I'll probably allow myself to try and read them within the same month, but if I don't manage to read them that month, then they'll be going. And to help with that as well, so I've been aiming to read one Book Death Row book a month, and since I've started choosing one at random from the list each month, I've actually have been reading them. But to help speed that up a bit, rather than just picking one book a month, I'm going to use that as a rolling thing. So as soon as I finish one Book Death Row book, that's when I then use a random number generator to pick the next one. And then I have a month from the day I finish the one book to read the next book, if that makes sense, to try and help me get through those books a bit quicker or make decisions about them a bit quicker. Hopefully that is all fairly clear. I've made a start in October with, actually, there were some books on my Book Death Row that most of the books that are on my Book Death Row at the moment are on there because they're the ones that have been on my TBR the longest. So I decided that I'd start this project by trying the first chapter of all of the ones that are on Book Death Row that I haven't yet read any of. So I did at least half a dozen of them yesterday, and I have unhauled one already, and the others are going to stay on there for now. I've got a few more that I'm going to try and get through this afternoon, and then if I have time later in the month, I might start on my general bookshelves, 10 of them to read from. If not, I will start that properly in November. And so every month now when I do my wrap up, I'll give you the stats as well of how many books are still on my TBR and how many books are on my Book Death Row, as well as how many books I've read from my TBR and from Book Death Row, and also if I'm going to be unhauling any, how many books I've decided not to keep that month. I'll probably do that too, and then I'll still be doing my unhauls twice a year in the summer and around Christmas time, because that seems to work quite well for me and it helps me have a big clear out, and hopefully it'll help me get my shelves to be slightly more manageable because I'm running out of space, and to get my TBR down to a much nicer figure, closer to, well, my goal for the end of the year was to get my TBR down below 450 books, which I'm not sure if that's possible. As I mentioned, it's currently on 540. When I revised that, my mid-year check-in, I said get it below 500. Again, so that would be good if I could do that. October, November, December, I might be able to get it, with reading books as well, I might be able to get it below the 500 mark. That would be great if I can. We'll see how it goes, really. Yeah, so that's all for today. Let me know how many books are on your TBR. Do you have as big a problem as I do with hauling books? It's a weakness. It is a real weakness, but there are worse things I could be addicted to buying, so I give myself a break over that at least. Yeah, so let me know how many books are on your TBR and how you manage to keep that number down. If you're quite good at that, give me some tips. Please like this video if you liked it. Please think about subscribing if you haven't already. You can also contact me on my social media. All that information is always listed in the description box below. And that's it for today, so I will talk to you again soon. Bye!